The arrow hissed through the air with a sound like death itself, and Liam Matthews threw himself between the deadly shaft and the orc girl without thought, without hesitation, without even knowing her name. The impact drove him to his knees. Fire exploded through his shoulder as the arrowhead punched through leather and muscle, the force of it spinning him halfway around before he collapsed onto the dusty trading post road. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard shouting, the thunder of hooves, and then a strangled cry that sounded almost like his own name, though he had never heard it spoken in such a voice before. Strong hands gripped him, surprisingly gentle despite their obvious power. Green skin filled his vision, and wide amber eyes stared down at him with an expression caught somewhere between horror and disbelief. "Why?" The word came out harsh, accented, trembling. "Why would you do that?" Liam tried to answer, but the world tilted sideways and darkness rushed in. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments. The creak of a cart, the smell of herbs he did not recognize, pain that throbbed with each heartbeat, centered in his left shoulder but radiating outward until his whole body felt like one massive bruise. He opened his eyes to find himself lying on rough blankets in the back of a wagon, staring up at a canvas cover that filtered the sunlight into a warm, golden glow. "You are awake." The voice came from his right, and Liam turned his head carefully to see the orc girl sitting beside him, her posture rigid with tension. In the better light, he could see her more clearly than he had on the road. She was young, perhaps his own age of 22 or 23, with skin the color of spring leaves and dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. Small tusks curved up from her lower jaw, and her pointed ears twitched slightly as she watched him. She wore simple traveling clothes, a tunic and trousers that had seen better days, and her hands were clenched in her lap as though she did not quite know what to do with them. "Water," Liam managed, his throat dry as old leather. She moved immediately, reaching for a water skin and helping him sit up enough to drink without choking. The water was cool and tasted faintly of pine. He drank deeply, then sagged back against the folded blankets that served as a pillow. "Thank you," he said, and watched surprise flicker across her face. "You thank me, after I nearly got you killed." Her accent was thick, but her words were clear, each one chosen with care. "Those men were shooting at me. That arrow was meant for me, I know." "Then why?" She leaned forward, her amber eyes searching his face as though the answer might be written there. "You do not know me. You owe me nothing. And I am—" She stopped abruptly, her jaw tightening. "An orc," Liam finished quietly. "Yes, I noticed. Then you are either very stupid or very mad." But there was no real anger in her voice, only confusion and something that might have been wonder. Liam tried to shrug, then immediately regretted it as pain lanced through his shoulder. "Maybe both," he admitted through gritted teeth. "But I saw those men aiming at you, and I saw that you had no weapon, no way to defend yourself. And I thought," he paused, trying to put into words something he had not fully understood even as he was doing it. "I thought that no one should die like that. Shot in the back by cowards hiding in the rocks." The orc girl stared at him for a long moment, then looked away, blinking rapidly. "My name is Korgha," she said finally. "Korgha of the Broken Peak clan, or I was before they cast me out. Liam Matthews. Late of the King's Border Guard, now just a man trying to find a place to call home." "Well, Liam Matthews, you are a fool." But she said it almost fondly, and when she looked back at him, her eyes were gentler. "The arrow went through your shoulder. I pulled it out and packed the wound with healing moss and silverleaf. You will have a scar, but you will live, unless infection sets in. Where are we going?" "There is a settlement 3 days north, near the edge of the Whispering Woods. Humans and orcs both trade there, though they do not much like each other. I was traveling there when those men attacked. She hesitated, then added, "You should have left me. I am used to such things." "No one should be used to that," Liam said firmly. Korgha looked at him with an expression he could not quite read, then turned away to rummage in a leather pack. "You should rest. The fever will come soon, and you will need your strength to fight it." She was right. As the day wore on, Liam's temperature climbed, turning his skin hot to the touch and his thoughts fuzzy at the edges. Korgha bathed his face with cool water and changed the dressing on his wound, her movements efficient but never rough. Sometimes she spoke to him in what he assumed was the Orcish language, low, rhythmic words that might have been prayers or simply thoughts spoken aloud. He found the sound oddly comforting. The fever broke on the second day, leaving him weak but clear-headed. He woke to find Korgha sitting in the driver's seat of the wagon, guiding the old mule that pulled it along a rutted forest road. She glanced back when she heard him moving and brought the wagon to a halt. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I was trampled by horses," Liam admitted, but he managed to sit up on his own this time. "But better than yesterday. Good. We will reach the settlement by tomorrow evening if the weather holds." She climbed back into the wagon bed and offered him a strip of dried meat and a hunk of dark bread. "Eat. You need to keep your strength up." They ate in companionable silence, and Liam found himself studying Korgha when he thought she was not looking. There was a grace to her movements, a quiet strength that spoke of someone who had learned to rely only on herself. But there were shadows in her eyes, a wariness that went bone deep. "Why did your clan cast you out?" he asked, then immediately wished he had kept his mouth shut when her expression closed off. But after a moment she answered, "I helped a human child, a little girl, no more than 5 or 6, who had wandered away from her family's farm and gotten lost in the hills. I found her and brought her back. Her parents were grateful, I think, though they were also afraid. They thanked me and hurried her inside." She picked at the bread in her hands. "My clan said I had shamed myself by showing weakness to our enemies, that I had forgotten the old hatreds and betrayed my people. They gave me a day to gather my things and leave." "That is not weakness," Liam said quietly. "That is courage." Korgha looked up at him sharply, searching his face for mockery and finding none. "Most humans would not see it that way. To them, I am a monster who happened to do one decent thing. Then most humans are fools." He met her gaze steadily. "I was a soldier for 5 years, Korgha. I fought in the border skirmishes. I saw good people on both sides die for hatreds they inherited, not hatreds they chose. And I saw enough cruelty from my own people to know that the color of someone's skin means nothing about what is in their heart." "Is that why you left the guard?" "Partly." Liam looked down at his hands, remembering orders he had refused to follow, commanders who valued revenge over justice. "I did not like the man I was becoming, so I left, and I have been traveling ever since, looking for somewhere that feels right. Have you found it?" "Not yet, but I keep hoping." Korgha studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You are an unusual man, Liam Matthews." "So I have been told." They reached the settlement called Grey Haven just as the sun was setting on the third day. It was larger than Liam had expected, a sprawling collection of buildings that straddled a wide river. The northern bank was primarily human, the southern primarily orc, with a sturdy stone bridge connecting the two sides. Trade goods moved across that bridge in both directions, but Liam noticed that the people themselves rarely mixed. Humans stayed on their side, orcs on theirs, and the few who crossed did so quickly, eyes down, hurrying to complete their business and return to safety. Korgha guided the wagon to a small inn on the orcish side of the river. It was a low building built of logs and river stone, with smoke rising from a central chimney and the sound of voices drifting from within. She helped Liam down from the wagon, steadying him when his legs threatened to give out, and together they made their way inside. The common room fell silent when they entered. A dozen pairs of eyes turned toward them, most of them belonging to orcs who looked at Liam with expressions ranging from suspicion to outright hostility. But the innkeeper, a broad-shouldered orc woman with gray streaks in her dark hair, simply nodded at Korgha and spoke in their language. Korgha replied in kind, and whatever she said must have satisfied the innkeeper, because the woman gestured toward the stairs and quoted what Liam assumed was a price. Korgha counted out coins from a small pouch, and they were shown to a room on the second floor. It was simple but clean, with 2 narrow beds, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the river. Liam sank onto one of the beds with a sigh of relief, and Korgha immediately began fussing over his bandages. "The wound looks good," she said after examining it. "No infection. You heal well." "Thanks to you." She made a dismissive sound but did not argue. Instead, she rewrapped his shoulder with fresh cloth and helped him out of his travel-stained shirt. Her hands were gentle, and Liam found himself acutely aware of her closeness, the warmth of her skin, the faint scent of herbs and wood smoke that clung to her. "Why did you bring me to the orc side?" he asked, partly to distract himself from thoughts he had no business thinking. "Surely there are human healers who could have tended me." "Orc healers are better," Korgha said bluntly, "and besides, I do not trust human settlements, not after." She trailed off, but Liam understood. "The men who attacked you." "Yes, they were hunters, I think. The kind who seek out orcs traveling alone and kill them for sport, or for the bounty some lords still pay." Her voice was matter-of-fact, but her hands tightened on the bandage she was holding. "It is not the first time I have been hunted." Anger flared in Liam's chest, hot and fierce. "That is murder. To humans, killing an orc is often not considered murder." She finished tying off the bandage and stepped back. "But you are not like most humans, are you?" "I try not to be." Korgha looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Then she turned away and began unpacking supplies from her bag. "Rest now. Tomorrow I will find work here and you will need to decide what to do next. You do not owe me anything more, Liam Matthews. You saved my life. That debt is paid." But Liam did not feel like the debt was paid. If anything, he felt like he was just beginning to understand what he owed, not to Korgha specifically, but to himself. For 5 years he had followed orders, done what was expected, kept his head down and his mouth shut. And then he had walked away because he could not bear the weight of his own cowardice anymore. Stepping in front of that arrow had been the first truly brave thing he had done in a long time. And looking at Korgha now, at the proud set of her shoulders and the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide, he realized he did not want to walk away. Not yet. "What if I stayed?" he heard himself say. Korgha turned to look at him, her eyes wide. "What?" "What if I stayed in Grey Haven for a while, until I am fully healed at least?" He met her gaze steadily. "I have no ties, no obligations, and you said yourself that you need to find work. Maybe I could do the same, we could." He trailed off, not quite sure how to finish that sentence. "You would stay here, on the orc side of the river." Korgha's voice was carefully neutral, but Liam thought he heard hope buried beneath the caution. "Why not, if they will have me? They will not like it. A human living among orcs, it is not done." "Then maybe it is time someone did it." Korgha stared at him, and for a moment Liam thought she would argue, would tell him he was being foolish again. But instead, a slow smile spread across her face, transforming her features from guarded to almost beautiful. "You are either very brave or very stupid," she said, echoing her words from days before. "Probably both," Liam agreed, and they laughed together. The days that followed were not easy. Liam's presence on the orcish side of Grey Haven caused no small amount of tension. Orcs stared at him wherever he went, some with suspicion, others with outright anger. More than once he heard muttered insults in a language he did not speak, but whose meaning was clear enough. But Korgha stayed close, and her presence seemed to afford him some protection, or at least keep the hostility from boiling over into violence. He found work at the docks, loading and unloading the boats that traveled up and down the river. It was hard labor, and his healing shoulder protested every movement, but the work was honest and the pay was fair. Korgha found a position at a tannery, treating hides and making leather goods. They fell into a routine. Work during the day, meals taken at the inn or cooked over a small fire behind the building, evenings spent talking or simply sitting in comfortable silence. Liam learned more about Korgha as the days turned into weeks. She had been born in the Broken Peak clan, one of the northern tribes that lived in the mountains beyond the human kingdoms. Her mother had died when she was young, and she had been raised primarily by her father and her uncle, both warriors who had fought in the clan wars. She had been training to be a scout when she made the decision to help the human child, the decision that had cost her everything. "You regret it?" Liam asked one evening as they sat by the river, watching the sun set behind the western hills. Korgha was quiet for a long time. "I regret the pain it caused," she said finally. "My father wept when I left, but I do not regret helping the child. How could I? She was innocent, lost, afraid. What kind of person would I be if I had turned my back on her? A person like the men who shot at you," Liam said quietly. "Yes." She looked at him, her amber eyes reflecting the dying light. "The world is full of people who let fear turn them cruel. I did not want to be one of them." "Neither did I," Liam admitted. "That is why I left the guard. I saw what fear could do, how it could twist good men into monsters. I did not want to become that. So we are both cast out in our own ways." Korgha smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. Two people looking for a place to belong. "Maybe we already found it," Liam said, surprising himself with the words. Korgha looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean..." He hesitated, trying to find the right words. "I have been traveling for more than a year, going from place to place, and nowhere felt right. But here, with you, I feel like I can breathe, like I do not have to pretend to be someone I am not." He met her gaze. "Is that foolish?" "No," Korgha said softly. "It is not foolish." She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and took his hand. Her palm was calloused from work, warm and strong. "I feel it too, like I am less alone than I have been since I left my clan." They sat like that as the sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars emerged, hands clasped, neither speaking but both understanding that something had shifted between them, something profound and a little frightening. As summer deepened into autumn, Liam and Korgha grew closer. They moved out of the inn and into a small cabin on the outskirts of the orcish settlement, a one-room structure that had been abandoned years before. It needed work, but they repaired the roof and patched the walls, and slowly it became a home. Liam built furniture, rough benches and a table, while Korgha sewed curtains and cushions from scraps of fabric. They worked side by side, and in the evenings they cooked together, learning each other's favorite foods and sharing stories from their pasts. The other orcs in Grey Haven began to accept Liam's presence, if not welcome it. He proved himself willing to work hard and respectful of their customs, and slowly the open hostility faded into wary tolerance. A few even began to greet him when they passed, though conversations remained brief and formal. But it was the humans who caused the most trouble. Word spread to the northern side of the river that a human man was living among the orcs, sharing a home with one of their women, and the reaction was swift and ugly. Liam received threats, notes left on their doorstep warning him to leave or face consequences. Korgha was accosted twice in the market by human traders who called her vile names and suggested she had bewitched him. "They do not understand," Korgha said one night after a particularly nasty confrontation. She was sitting on their bed, shoulders hunched, looking smaller than Liam had ever seen her. "They think I have corrupted you, stolen you away from your own kind." "Let them think what they want," Liam said firmly. He sat beside her and put his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "I am here because I choose to be, because you are the best person I have ever known, and I would be a fool to walk away from that." Korgha leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. "I am afraid," she admitted quietly, "afraid that they will hurt you because of me. That one day I will lose you the way I lost everything else." "You will not lose me," Liam promised. "I am not going anywhere." But fate, it seemed, had other plans. It was a cold morning in late autumn when the trouble came. Liam was at the docks as usual, helping unload a shipment of grain from upriver. He heard the commotion before he saw it. Shouts from the direction of the market, the sound of something heavy crashing to the ground, screams. He dropped the sack he was holding and ran toward the noise, his heart pounding. The market square was in chaos. A group of human men, at least a dozen strong, had crossed the bridge and were tearing through the orcish stalls, overturning tables and destroying goods. They were armed with clubs and knives, and they moved with the deliberate purpose of people who had planned this violence. "Where is she?" one of them was shouting. "Where is the orc bitch who put a spell on Liam Matthews?" Ice flooded Liam's veins. They were looking for Korgha. He shoved his way through the crowd, searching desperately for a familiar face. He spotted her near the center of the square, backed against a wall by three men who advanced on her with weapons drawn. She had a knife in her hand, but she was outnumbered and they knew it. "Korgha!" Liam shouted, and every head in the square turned toward him. "Well, look who it is," the leader of the human group said. He was a big man with a scarred face and mean eyes, the kind of man Liam had learned to recognize during his time in the guard. A bully and a coward, dangerous only because he traveled in a pack. The traitor himself. "Come to defend your monster, leave her alone," Liam said, keeping his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "This is not her fault. If you have a problem with me living here, take it up with me." "Oh, we intend to," the man said with a cold smile. "But first we are going to teach that creature a lesson about messing with human men." He lunged at Korgha, and Liam moved without thinking. He slammed into the man from the side, knocking him away from her, and the two of them went down in a tangle of limbs. Fists flew, and Liam felt his knuckles split against the man's jaw, tasted blood when a return blow split his lip. Around them, the square erupted into violence as orcs rushed to defend their own and the human raiders fought back. Liam lost track of how long the fight lasted. It felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. He took hits that would bruise for weeks, landed blows that dropped men to the ground. And through it all, he kept himself between Korgha and anyone who tried to reach her, a living shield against the hatred that sought to tear them apart. It ended when the town guard arrived, a mix of human and orc peacekeepers who waded into the melee with batons and authority. The raiders were rounded up, disarmed, and marched away to face justice. Liam sagged against a broken stall, breathing hard, and felt Korgha's arms wrap around him. "You are hurt," she said, her voice thick with tears. "You stupid, brave, impossible man, you are hurt because of me." "I am fine," Liam lied, though everything hurt and he was pretty sure at least one of his ribs was cracked. "Are you all right? I am not the one bleeding." She pulled back to look at him, her eyes blazing with equal parts fury and fear. "They came here because of us." Because we dared to care for each other. How many more will come? How long before someone succeeds in killing one of us? I do not know, Liam admitted. But I know that I am not giving up, not on us, not on this. He cupped her face with one battered hand. I love you, Korgha. I think I have loved you since you looked at me in that wagon and asked me why I would do something so foolish as save your life. And I will keep being foolish as long as it means I get to be with you. Korgha stared at him, tears streaming down her green cheeks. You cannot love me. I am everything I want, Liam interrupted. Everything I have been looking for without knowing it. You are brave and kind and strong, and I do not care what anyone else thinks. I love you. I love you too, Korgha whispered, the words breaking free like they had been held back for too long. I love you, and I am terrified of what that means. Then be terrified with me, Liam said, and kissed her. Her lips were warm despite the cold air, and she tasted like salt and tears and something uniquely her. She kissed him back fiercely, desperately, like she was trying to memorize the moment. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Liam rested his forehead against hers. We will figure this out, he promised. Together. The attack on the market had consequences that rippled through Grey Haven like stones thrown into still water. The raiders were tried and sentenced to hard labor, but the damage to the fragile peace between the two sides of the river was harder to repair. Tensions ran high, and for a time it seemed like the settlement might tear itself apart, but something unexpected happened. A group of orcs, including the innkeeper who had first housed them, spoke publicly in defense of Liam, testifying to his character and his willingness to stand with their community. And on the human side, a few voices rose as well, mostly traders and craftspeople who had worked with Korgha and respected her skill and honesty. It was not a flood of support, but it was enough to shift the conversation from whether humans and orcs could live together to how they could do so better. The town council, that mix of human and orc leaders who governed Grey Haven, called for a public assembly. It was held on the bridge, neutral ground where both communities could gather. Liam and Korgha stood at the center, holding hands, as people from both sides of the river came to speak. Some of what was said was ugly, fearful words about tradition and the dangers of mixing races. But others spoke of trade that benefited everyone, of skills learned and shared across cultural lines, of children from both sides playing together by the river when adults were not looking. And a few, a precious few, spoke of love and the courage it took to reach across divides. When it was Liam's turn to speak, he kept his words simple. I am not asking anyone to change their beliefs overnight, he said, his voice carrying across the bridge. I am just asking for the chance to live my life in peace with the woman I love. We are not hurting anyone. We just want to build a home, maybe raise a family someday and be left alone to do it. Is that so much to ask? Korgha squeezed his hand, and when she spoke, her voice was steady. My people and yours have been enemies for generations. But enemies are made, not born. Children do not hate until they are taught to. I was cast out by my clan for showing kindness to a human child, and Liam was attacked for choosing to live with an orc. But we are still here, still standing because we believe that love is stronger than hate. Prove us right. Choose a different future. The silence that followed was heavy, fraught with possibility. Then, slowly, a human woman stepped forward. She was older, gray-haired, with the weathered look of someone who had lived a hard life. My grandson plays with orc children down by the river, she said quietly. He comes home happy, talking about his friends. He does not see monsters. He sees playmates. Maybe we could learn from that. An orc man nodded. My daughter trades herbs with human healers. They respect her knowledge. That respect should not end when she leaves the marketplace. One by one, others added their voices, not all of them supportive but enough to create the sense that change was possible. The council conferred quietly, then announced that while they could not force anyone to approve of the relationship between Liam and Korgha, they would enforce laws protecting all residents of Grey Haven from violence and harassment, regardless of race. It was not everything, but it was a start. As the assembly dispersed, Liam felt the weight of 100 eyes on them, but he also felt something else, hope. It was fragile and uncertain, but it was real. "We did it," Korgha said softly as they walked back toward their cabin. "We actually did it. We survived," Liam corrected. "There is still a long way to go, but we will go it together. Always." Winter settled over Grey Haven, and with it came a quiet time for healing. The markets remained tense but functional, and the bridge saw steady traffic in both directions. Liam and Korgha worked hard to prove themselves, not just as individuals but as a couple who belonged to the community. They helped neighbors on both sides of the river, offered their skills freely, and slowly, grudgingly, acceptance grew. It was during this time that Liam began to build their future in earnest. He had saved enough money from his work at the docks to buy a small piece of land on the outskirts of Grey Haven, a plot that straddled the invisible line between human and orc territory. With Korgha's help, he began to clear the land and plan a house, something more permanent than the cabin they currently shared. "It will be our home," he told her one evening as they stood on the snowy field, imagining what it would become. "A place that belongs to both of us, that honors both of our heritages." "You mean a place where stubborn humans and foolish orcs can live in peace?" Korgha teased, but her eyes were shining. "Exactly that." They worked through the winter whenever weather permitted, laying foundations and framing walls. Neighbors, both human and orc, began to stop by to help. It started with one or two people offering an extra pair of hands, then grew into something larger. Work parties formed, bringing food and tools and laughter. The house became a project that brought the community together, a symbol of what could be built when people chose cooperation over conflict. By the time spring arrived, the house was nearly complete. It was a sturdy structure of wood and stone, with a large main room, a loft for sleeping, and a wide porch that looked out over the river. Korgha planted a garden while Liam built furniture, and together they turned the empty structure into a home filled with warmth and life. On the first day of summer, they held a gathering to celebrate the house's completion. People from both sides of Grey Haven came, bearing gifts and well wishes. There was food and music, and for a few hours, the divisions that normally separated the community seemed to fade away. Children played in the yard while adults talked and laughed, and Liam looked around at the gathering and felt his heart swell with gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly to Korgha as they stood together on the porch, watching the celebration. "For taking a chance on a foolish human who threw himself in front of an arrow." "Thank you for being foolish," Korgha replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I do not know where I would be without you, lost, probably, still wandering, still alone." "You are never going to be alone again," Liam promised. "I will make sure of that." She looked up at him, and he saw his own emotions reflected in her eyes. Love, hope, and the quiet certainty that they had found something worth fighting for. "Marry me," Liam said suddenly, the words spilling out before he had fully thought them through. "I know it is not traditional, and I do not even know if humans and orcs can legally marry, but I do not care. I want to stand before our community and declare that you are mine and I am yours, for as long as we both live." Korgha's eyes went wide, her tusks catching the light as her mouth fell open in surprise. "You want to marry me, more than anything," Liam said fervently. He took both her hands in his. I know we cannot have a wedding like our parents might have imagined, but we can create our own traditions. We can build something new just like we built this house. Please, Korgha, marry me." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling, a radiant expression of pure joy. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, I will marry you, you wonderful, foolish man." They kissed there on the porch while their friends and neighbors cheered below, and Liam felt like his heart might burst from happiness. Planning the wedding was an adventure in itself. There were no established customs for a union between a human and an orc. So Liam and Korgha borrowed from both their cultures and invented new traditions where needed. They worked with the town council to create a ceremony that would be recognized by both communities, and they found an elder, a respected human woman, and a shaman, a wise orc man, who agreed to officiate together. The wedding took place in late summer, on the bridge that connected the two sides of Grey Haven. It was fitting, Liam thought, that they would pledge their lives to each other on neutral ground, in a space that belonged to everyone and no one. The day dawned clear and bright, the sky a perfect blue. Liam dressed in his best clothes, simple but clean, and made his way to the bridge with hands that trembled slightly from nerves and excitement. The structure had been decorated with flowers and ribbons, and benches had been set up on both sides to accommodate the crowd that had gathered. And it was a crowd. It seemed like half of Grey Haven had turned out to witness the ceremony, humans and orcs standing side by side, their differences temporarily set aside in favor of shared curiosity, and in some cases, genuine goodwill. Liam took his place at the center of the bridge, flanked by the elder and the shaman. His heart pounded as he waited, and then he saw her. Korgha walked toward him from the orcish side of the bridge, and she was beautiful. She wore a dress of deep green that brought out the color of her skin, and her hair was unbound, falling in dark waves around her shoulders. Flowers were woven into her braid, and she carried a bouquet of wildflowers picked from their own garden. But it was her expression that took Liam's breath away, the pure joy and love that shone from her face as she walked toward him. She stopped beside him, and Liam took her hand, marveling at how right it felt. The elder spoke first, her voice carrying across the bridge. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of two souls who have chosen to walk through life together. Liam Matthews and Korgha of the Broken Peak clan come from different worlds, but they have found in each other a home. Their love is a testament to the power of choice, of courage, and of hope." The shaman continued, his words a mix of common tongue and orcish that was translated for those who did not understand. "In the old ways, a union is sealed by the exchange of promises, by the binding of lives into one path. These two have already walked many hard roads together. Now they choose to make that journey permanent. Liam and Korgha had written their own vows, and now Liam spoke first, his voice shaking only slightly. "Korgha, from the moment I saw you, I knew you were someone special. You have taught me what it means to be brave, to stand up for what is right even when the whole world seems against you. You have shown me that love is not about finding someone like you, but about finding someone who makes you better. I promise to stand by your side, to defend you, to support you, and to love you for all the days of my life. You are my home, and I am yours." Korgha's tears were flowing freely now, but her voice was strong when she replied, "Liam, you are the most foolish, wonderful man I have ever known. You stepped in front of an arrow meant for me without knowing my name, and you have been protecting me ever since, not with violence but with kindness and love. You have given me a home when I had none, a future when I thought I had lost everything. I promise to walk beside you, to share your burdens, to celebrate your joys, and to love you with everything I am. You saved my life, and now I give it to you freely." The elder and the shaman spoke in unison, their voices blending into a single declaration. "By the power vested in us by this community, and by the bonds of love that unite all living things, we declare you married. May your union be blessed with happiness, may your home be filled with love, and may you always find strength in each other." Liam and Korgha kissed as the crowd erupted into applause and cheers. The sound washed over them, a wave of approval and acceptance that felt like a benediction. When they finally pulled apart, both were grinning through their tears. They walked back across the bridge together, hand in hand, and the crowd parted to let them through. A celebration followed, a feast held in the square near their house. There was music and dancing, food from both human and orc traditions, and a sense of genuine joy that transcended the usual boundaries. As the sun set and lanterns were lit, Liam and Korgha slipped away from the party and made their way to their house. They stood on the porch, looking out at the gathering below, and Liam wrapped his arms around his wife, still marveling at the fact that he could call her that. "We did it," Korgha whispered. "We actually did it." "I told you we would," Liam replied, kissing the top of her head. "What happens now?" "Now we live," Liam said simply. "We build our life together day by day. We face whatever challenges come, and we do it as a team, and we love each other every single day for the rest of our lives." "That sounds perfect," Korgha said, turning in his arms to face him. "Absolutely perfect." They kissed again, a slow and tender meeting of lips that held all the promise of their future. The noise of the celebration faded into the background, and for that moment, there was only the two of them. Two people who had found each other against all odds and chosen to build something beautiful from the ashes of prejudice and fear. As autumn arrived once more, life in Grey Haven settled into a new rhythm. Liam and Korgha became fixtures in the community, known not just as the unusual couple but as neighbors, friends, and people who could be counted on. They helped with harvests, mediated disputes, and continued to break down barriers simply by existing and loving each other openly. Word of their wedding spread beyond Grey Haven, carried by traders and travelers to other settlements. Some reacted with horror, others with curiosity, and a few with hope. More mixed couples began to emerge, emboldened by Liam and Korgha's example. It was slow, but change was happening. One crisp morning in late autumn, Korgha woke Liam with a smile and a secret she had been keeping for a few weeks. "I am with child," she said quietly, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. Liam stared at her, the words taking a moment to sink in. Then joy exploded through him, so powerful it left him breathless. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Korgha's smile widened. "In the spring, if my calculations are correct." Liam pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, his mind racing with 1,000 thoughts at once. A baby. Their baby. A child who would be part human and part orc, a living symbol of everything they had fought for. "Are you happy?" Korgha asked, her voice muffled against his chest. "I am terrified and thrilled and happier than I have ever been in my entire life," Liam admitted. "We are going to be parents." "We are," Korgha agreed, and they held each other, two people on the edge of a new adventure. The pregnancy was not easy. Korgha suffered from sickness in the early months, and there were moments when fear crept in, worries about what kind of world they were bringing a child into. But the community rallied around them. The innkeeper brought herbal teas that helped with the nausea. Human neighbors offered advice and hand-me-down baby clothes. The shaman blessed their home and prayed for a safe delivery. As Korgha's belly grew, so did the sense of anticipation. Liam built a cradle from oak wood, carving intricate patterns into the sides that represented both human and orc heritage. Korgha sewed blankets and tiny clothes, her hands moving with a tenderness that made Liam's heart ache. Winter passed slowly, each day bringing them closer to the moment when their lives would change forever. And then, on a warm spring morning when the flowers were just beginning to bloom, Korgha's labor began. It was long and difficult, and Liam felt utterly helpless as he watched her struggle. The midwife, an experienced orc woman, worked with calm efficiency, but the hours stretched on and on. Liam held Korgha's hand, whispered encouragement, and prayed to any god who might be listening that both she and the baby would be all right. Finally, as the sun was setting, a thin wail filled the room. The midwife lifted a small, squirming bundle and announced, "A son. You have a son." Liam's knees went weak with relief. The midwife cleaned the baby and wrapped him in a blanket, then placed him in Korgha's arms. She looked exhausted but radiant, her face glowing with love as she gazed down at their child. "He is perfect," she whispered. Liam leaned in to look at his son. The baby was small, with skin that was a pale olive, somewhere between Liam's tan and Korgha's green. He had a shock of dark hair and tiny ears that came to slight points. His eyes, when they opened, were a striking amber color. "He looks like both of us," Liam said in wonder, touching the baby's tiny hand. Miniature fingers curled around his, gripping with surprising strength. "He is ours," Korgha said simply, and in those two words Liam heard everything. Pride, love, and the fierce determination to protect this small life no matter what. They named him Aaron, a name that worked in both human and orc languages, meaning eagle and symbolizing freedom and strength. From the moment he entered the world, Aaron became the center of their universe. The first few months were a blur of sleepless nights and constant worry, but also of indescribable joy. Liam learned to change diapers and soothe a crying infant, skills he had never imagined needing. Korgha nursed Aaron and sang him lullabies in Orcish, soft melodies that made Liam's eyes sting with tears. Neighbors came to visit, bearing gifts and offering congratulations. The sight of a half-human, half-orc baby was unprecedented in Grey Haven, and Aaron drew curious looks wherever they took him. But most of the reactions were positive, and more than one person commented that he was beautiful, a perfect blend of both his parents. As Aaron grew, it became clear that he had inherited the best qualities of both races. He was strong and healthy, with the robust constitution of an orc and the quick reflexes of a human. He was curious and intelligent, reaching developmental milestones early and constantly exploring his world. Watching him grow, Liam felt a profound sense of purpose. This was what they had fought for, not just their own happiness but the possibility of a future where children like Aaron could exist without fear, where love could cross any boundary. One afternoon, when Aaron was about 6 months old, Liam took him out to the porch while Korgha rested. The baby sat on his lap, babbling cheerfully and grabbing at everything within reach. Across the yard, Liam could see children playing, a mix of human and orc kids who had grown up together and saw nothing strange about their friendship. "You are going to grow up in a different world than your mother and I did," Liam told Aaron, knowing the baby did not understand but needing to say it anyway. "A better world, I hope. One where you can be proud of both sides of your heritage. Where you do not have to choose between your human blood and your orc blood, because both are equally important." Aaron gurgled and reached for Liam's face, tiny fingers patting his cheek. Liam kissed the baby's forehead, breathing in the sweet scent of him, and felt his heart overflow with love. Korgha joined them a few minutes later, looking rested and beautiful in the afternoon light. She settled into the chair beside Liam and took Aaron from him, cradling their son against her chest. "What were you two talking about?" she asked. "The future," Liam said. and how lucky Aaron is going to be to grow up with you as his mother. And you as his father, Korgha countered. He will grow up knowing that love is stronger than hate, that courage means standing up for what is right, and that family is defined not by blood alone but by choice and commitment. He will know that because of you, Liam said, because you chose to help a lost child even when it cost you everything, because you were brave enough to love me when the world said you should not. We were brave together, Korgha corrected. She reached out and took Liam's hand, linking their fingers together while Aaron dozed contentedly between them. And we will continue to be brave for him and for each other. They sat like that as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Around them, Grey Haven hummed with life, the sounds of two communities learning to live side by side drifting on the evening air. It was not perfect, and there were still challenges ahead, but in that moment, everything felt right. Liam thought back to the day he had thrown himself in front of that arrow, acting on instinct without thought for the consequences. It had seemed foolish at the time, reckless even. But it had led him here to this porch with this woman and this child to a life fuller and richer than anything he could have imagined. I would do it again, he said suddenly. Korgha looked at him questioningly. Do what again? Step in front of that arrow. Even knowing everything that would come after, all the hardship and the fighting and the fear, I would do it again in a heartbeat, because it brought me to you. Korgha's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. I am glad you were foolish that day. I am glad you saw an orc girl about to die and decided she was worth saving. You were always worth saving, Liam said fiercely. And I will spend the rest of my life proving that to you. You already have, Korgha whispered, and they kissed over their sleeping son, sealing the promise with tenderness and love. The years that followed were good ones. Grey Haven continued to grow and evolve, becoming known throughout the region as a place where humans and orcs lived and worked together in relative harmony. It was not without its difficulties. Old prejudices died hard, and there were still incidents that required intervention and healing. But the community had learned to face these challenges together, and each resolution made them stronger. Liam and Korgha raised Aaron with love and discipline, teaching him to be proud of both his heritages. They told him stories of his human grandfather who had been a farmer, and his orc grandmother who had been a warrior. They taught him to speak both languages, to honor both cultures, and to never be ashamed of who he was. As Aaron grew into a bright and curious child, he became a bridge between the communities in ways his parents had never anticipated. He played with both human and orc children without hesitation, and his very existence challenged people to reconsider their assumptions. More mixed families formed, encouraged by the Matthews example, and slowly the line between the two sides of Grey Haven began to blur. When Aaron was 3, Korgha became pregnant again. This time, she delivered a daughter whom they named Alara. She had her mother's green skin and her father's brown eyes, and from the moment she entered the world, she was adored by everyone who met her. Aaron took to being a big brother with enthusiasm, and the house was filled with the chaos and joy of a growing family. Liam expanded their home to accommodate the growing family, adding rooms and building a workshop where he could teach Aaron woodworking when the boy was old enough. Korgha taught both children about herbs and healing, passing on knowledge from her mother and grandmother. Together, they created a childhood filled with love, learning, and the security of knowing they were wanted and valued. The community embraced the children. Human and orc neighbors alike stopped by with gifts, offered to babysit, and celebrated milestones with genuine affection. Aaron and Alara grew up surrounded by people from both cultures, and to them, The divisions that had once seemed so insurmountable were simply part of history, stories their parents told about the old days. On Aaron's 7th birthday, Liam and Korgha threw a party that brought together their extended chosen family. The yard was filled with people of all ages, humans and orcs eating and laughing together. Liam stood on the porch, watching his children play with their friends, and felt a profound sense of accomplishment. "They do not see the differences," Korgha said, coming to stand beside him. "To them, we are all just people." "That is how it should be," Liam agreed. He put his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "I never imagined this when I stepped in front of that arrow. I just knew I could not let you die. But look at what came from that moment. Look at what we built." "We built a family," Korgha said softly, "and a future. Our children will never know the fear and hatred that we knew. They will grow up in a world where love is celebrated, not punished." "Because of you," Liam said. "Because you were willing to love a foolish human who did not know any better than to fall for an orc." "Because of us," Korgha corrected, echoing words from years past. "We did this together." They stood together, watching their children and feeling the weight of gratitude for every choice that had led them to this moment. The arrow that had nearly ended Korgha's life had instead sparked something beautiful. A love story that had changed not just their lives, but the lives of everyone around them. As the sun set on that perfect day, Liam looked at his wife, his partner, his best friend, and knew with absolute certainty that he would make the same choice 1,000 times over. Some people might call it foolish to risk your life for a stranger, but Liam knew better. It was not foolish to choose love over fear, to see the person rather than the label, to believe that everyone deserved a chance at happiness. That single moment of courage, that split-second decision to step in front of an arrow, had given him everything. It had given him Korgha, brilliant and strong and beautiful. It had given him Aaron and Alara, children who would carry their legacy forward into a brighter future. It had given him a home, a community, and a purpose. "I love you," he said to Korgha, the same words he had spoken countless times before but which never lost their meaning. "I love you too," she replied, smiling up at him with eyes that held the universe. "My foolish, wonderful, brave human." "You're human," Liam agreed, "always and forever." As the stars emerged overhead and the party continued around them, Liam and Korgha remained on the porch, holding each other close. The arrow that had nearly killed Korgha had instead become the beginning of something beautiful. Proof that love could triumph over hate, that courage could change the world, and that sometimes the most foolish decisions turned out to be the wisest ones of all. Their story, which had begun with violence and fear, had transformed into something that would echo through generations. Aaron and Alara would tell their own children about the day their father had saved their mother's life, about how two people from different worlds had chosen to build a bridge instead of a wall. And those children would tell their children, and the story would become legend, a reminder that love required courage, but that courage was always worth it. In the end, the arrow had missed its mark. It had not ended a life, but had sparked one that was richer and more meaningful than either Liam or Korgha could have dreamed. They had taken that moment of darkness and turned it into light, proving that even in a world filled with hatred and division, love could find a way. And they lived that truth every day, in every moment they spent together, in every laugh they shared and every challenge they faced. They were not perfect, and their world was not perfect, but they had each other, and that made all the difference. As the party wound down and guests began to depart, calling out farewells and promises to visit soon, Liam and Korgha herded their tired children inside. Aaron and Alara protested sleepily, wanting the day to last forever, but they were asleep almost before their heads hit their pillows. Liam and Korgha stood in the doorway of their children's room, watching them sleep, and Liam felt his throat tighten with emotion. This was what he had been searching for all those years ago when he left the border guard. This sense of belonging, of purpose, of rightness. He had found it in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected person, and he would be grateful for that twist of fate for the rest of his life. "Come to bed," Korgha said softly, taking his hand. "Tomorrow will bring new adventures, but tonight we rest." Liam let her lead him to their room, and they settled into their bed, curling around each other in a familiar embrace. Outside, the night was peaceful, and inside, their home was filled with love and contentment. "Thank you," Liam whispered into the darkness. "For what?" Korgha murmured, already half asleep. "For letting me be foolish, for loving me back, for giving me this life." Korgha's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "Thank you for stepping in front of that arrow, for seeing me when everyone else saw a monster, for choosing me every day." "Always," Liam promised, and they drifted off to sleep together, secure in the knowledge that whatever the future held, they would face it side by side. The arrow had been meant for the orc girl, but he had stepped in front of it without a second thought, and that moment of instinctive courage had changed everything. It had given them both a second chance, a new beginning, and a love that would last a lifetime. And in a world that often seemed determined to tear people apart, Liam and Korgha had proven that love could bring them together, heal old wounds, and build something beautiful from the ashes of hatred. Their story was not just about romance, though there was plenty of that. It was about choosing to see the humanity in everyone, regardless of their appearance or background. It was about having the courage to stand up for what was right, even when the whole world seemed against you. It was about building bridges instead of walls, about teaching children to love instead of hate, and about proving that the differences between people mattered far less than the connections they could forge. And so their life continued, day by day, moment by moment, filled with the ordinary magic of a family built on love and courage. Liam taught Aaron how to use a hammer and saw, passing on skills that had served him well. Korgha taught Alara about the healing properties of plants, sharing knowledge that had been passed down through generations of orc women. Together, they raised their children to be kind, brave, and open-minded, to see people rather than categories, and to believe that love was always worth fighting for. Years passed, and their children grew into young adults who carried their parents' legacy forward. Aaron became a builder like his father, known for his skill and his willingness to work with anyone, regardless of race. Alara became a healer, combining human and orc medical knowledge to help people from both communities. And both of them carried with them the lesson their parents had taught by example. That love could conquer hate, that courage mattered more than comfort, and that the world could be changed one brave choice at a time. Liam and Korgha grew old together, their love deepening with each passing year. They watched their children find love of their own, some with humans, some with orcs, some with people from other races entirely. They welcomed grandchildren with joy, delighting in the beautiful diversity of their growing family. And through it all, they remained each other's best friend, partner, and love. On quiet evenings, they would sit on their porch, hands clasped, watching the sun set over Grey Haven. The settlement had changed dramatically from the divided community it had been when they first arrived. Now it was simply one town, where humans and orcs lived side by side, where mixed families were common, and where children played together without thought for the color of anyone's skin. "We did it," Korgha would say sometimes, marveling at how far they had come. "We did," Liam would agree, squeezing her hand, and they had. Not alone and not without help, but they had been the catalyst that started the change. By refusing to accept the hatred and division that everyone said was inevitable, by choosing love in the face of fear, they had helped create a better world. The arrow that had been meant to kill had instead become the spark that lit a fire of change, proving that even the darkest moments could lead to the brightest futures. And Liam Matthews, who had once been just a man looking for a place to belong, had found more than he ever dreamed possible because he had been foolish enough, brave enough, and loving enough to step in front of an arrow meant for an orc girl. He had saved her life that day, but in truth, they had saved each other. And in doing so, they had saved a part of the world as well, one act of courage at a time, one choice to love instead of hate, one belief that people were more than the sum of their differences. Their story became the foundation on which Grey Haven built its future, a reminder that change was possible, that love was powerful, and that sometimes the most important thing you could do was simply refuse to let fear win. And as Liam and Korgha lived out their days in the home they had built together, surrounded by family and community, they knew that their lives had mattered, that their love had made a difference, and that the arrow that had nearly ended everything had instead become the beginning of something beautiful that would last long after they were gone.